Well, hello, everybody. Just want to welcome you to our supplement masterclass. I'm Susie Tobias, and this is Dr. Stephen Bennett. We are your experts in this, I guess you could say. Nutritionists, gut specialists, functional medicine, chiropractor, supplement creator. Like we got a lot of things going on here, and a lot of people have always had a lot of questions about supplements. Like, do we need them? Why do we need them? Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? Am I taking too much? Am I not taking too much? How much is too much? Like, there's always a lot of questions around this, and it's funny because I have somebody who recently was like, we just radically changed her diet. She's got SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And she said, it's so funny. You asked me to take a supplement to heal my gut. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to take that. But I will shove the worst food in my mouth to destroy myself in 5 seconds. She said to me, where's the rationale in that? I mean, she processed through it and she was like, this is crazy. The minute you're like, I need to take a supplement because we need to kill off the bad bacteria, we need to heal and seal your gut up. She was like, take a supplement? But I will eat the Fritos, the Cheetos, I will. And then she stopped herself and was like, okay, this is not logical, And I think a lot of people feel that way. They want to rely on food to give them their nutrients. They don't want to take a supplement. But the bottom line is, most people's diet isn't going to support what they need, meaning the standard American diet or the SAD diet is not the best diet. Driving through McDonald's is not going to give you the nutrients that you need. It's going to give you higher cholesterol, but maybe not the nutrients that you correctly need for your body. So let's kind of just roll into this, Steve. But this first slide that we go into today, we're going to talk about, again, supplements, the 3 or the 4 C's: capacity, cost, consistency, and control. Steve Bennett, what is that all about?
Take it away. First of all, thank you, Susie, for putting this together. And thank you all for joining. I love this material. So this is fun for me, and I'm at your disposal in whatever format is appropriate, because I could talk about this stuff all day. That being said, I've learned a number of things over the years, first as a functional medicine doctor, and then also running a nutrition company. And I think those are important to talk about at the outset. And that's how these 4 C's just kind of came to me when I was putting together this presentation. Because in the beginning, as a functional medicine doctor, somebody would come into me and they'd have, 5 different things going on. And it would be really tempting and easy to prescribe 5 different supplements or more to them. And I found myself a few years in practicing almost like an allopathic physician, meaning here's your symptom, here's your supplement for it, right? And you got to be very careful with that, because it's not the way the body needs to be managed. We need to get to the RCA, the root cause analysis, and figure out what's really driving as much of this as we can get with one pill or one type of supplement, whatever. So I came up with these 4 C's because I've learned a ton on both sides of the supplement equation. Capacity refers to a patient's capacity for supplements. Some people will take a handful, and that's fine. Some people, like the person you just alluded to, doesn't want to have anything to do with supplements. And to be honest, the supplement industry hasn't done itself any favors, really, because there's a lot of, right? There's a lot of shenanigans, and we'll speak to that later, but you got to trust who you're working with. Because even the FDA has a nod towards this industry, they're certainly not the kind of control that will keep bad actors from acting badly. So capacity really tells me, how many supplements can you handle? How many capsules can you take a day? Because there's 2 things that follow from that. One is cost, and everybody's got a budget. And the other is consistency. That means, will you take 2 capsules a day regularly, or will you take 12? And what can you afford? So the reason I bring this up is that supplements are wonderful. I love them. I love knowing what they do and how they work, but it's all for naught if you don't take into account what a patient or a client or a customer is capable of doing.
Yes.
The last one is control. And I think most of us can understand this one. And if you look into your supplement cabinet and you see all those things you bought on a whim because you got really excited about XYZ and you had to get this supplement into your rotation, and you took it for a week and a half and then haven't taken it since. So control means get a good foundation that makes a lot of sense and stick with it. It's kind of like investing, right? If you start early and you're consistent, it will pay. Same with supplements. If you take some good stuff as a foundation and you're consistent with it, then you'll get the benefits. But if you take the best supplement for a week and a half, doesn't matter, right? So does that make sense, Susie?
Yeah, and I think to add into that, it's just like any medication. It takes time for things to build up into the system, and to see real change, you need a good 6 weeks. You know, when we do labs for anything, if we're going to change thyroid doses, if we're going to change anything, we're going to look 6 weeks in to see what's happening. So you have to give your body a chance to make the changes, and you have to give the supplement a chance to do the work that it needs to do.
I agree. And one of the tricky things is there's a number of really amazing nutritional ingredients that you'll never feel, you'll never know. And you may or may not see them show up on your test. And what I say, and it's kind of snarky, but it's like, it's really hard to feel yourself not getting cancer, right? It's really hard to test a non-event, but the data is so heavy duty with regard to affecting the fundamental things like inflammation, and just good things happen when you do that. And it's hard to refute. So bullet number 2, I run a nutrition company, but boy, I will always defer to good quality food. Much better way to get almost everything. You know, the caveats are, if you need a lot of something for a specific reason, sometimes you just can't eat 6 pounds of broccoli, right? On a daily basis, right? One of the challenges that a lot of us face is that our lifestyle is so frenetic, it's difficult to eat well. It takes a real commitment, and a lot of folks have too many things tugging at them to allow them to do that.
That's probably the biggest challenge that I see across the board working with people, and that is the fact that the lifestyle. Their lifestyle does not it doesn't promote a healthy eating style, because it's on the run. Everything is on the run. Everything is last minute. It's not prepared in advance. Things aren't slowed down. And we just live in such a fast-paced society. You know, you've got kids, you've got homework, and they've got practice, and they have all these things, and there's just no time. And so it's something that I've been really trying to drive home this year with people, is if you have to make some lifestyle changes, because if not, your lifestyle eventually will change you. And that being said, you know, not just dietary, but, you know, we look at sleep, we look at everything else. And if your body's in a constant state of stress, your cortisol levels are going to elevate. Okay. Yeah. It's going to affect your hormones. It's going to affect your weight. It's going to affect everything in your body, you know? And so the lifestyle makes it very, very difficult for eating well. So I couldn't agree more. And then the whole thing with organic and food label. Talk to me about that. Like it's very confusing. Like, what is even gluten-free? Like it can say gluten-free on there, but you can still have a certain percentage of gluten in there. Did you know that?
I did. And I know there's a lot of gluten, not a lot quantitatively, but a lot of gluten-free foods have gluten trace amounts, at least trace amounts in them.
And they're allowed to have a certain amount in there. You know, it has to be certified. It has to be certified, basically. And if it's not stamped certified, same thing with organic, is it? And it's hard for people like me who have celiac disease, because, you know, I mean, getting a little bit of gluten is going to stick me in bed for 3 days. I don't want that. And on the toilet, and I'm just a zombie. Not fun. Yep.
Agreed. Following on these bullets, and we'll just, I mean, tandem works if it works for you. You definitely get what you pay for. You know, when you get that big jug of fish oil at Costco, there's a reason why it's only $19.99. You know, and some supplements you can get away with buying inexpensive, but that's very few and far between. And one of the ones that I'm grateful for that it's this way is vitamin D. Vitamin D3 is a pretty simple molecule. And if you look around and you know how to shop, you could probably get a year's worth of vitamin D for $25. And if you can take nothing else or spend nothing else, that's a place to start, right?
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Vitamin D, Oh my gosh, it's the precursor for dopamine. It's the precursor for, which leads into testosterone, and it's your part of your immune system. I mean, vitamin D goes in 10 different thousand directions. And it's one of the things that I see most depleted in people when I see labs. Everybody's tanked in vitamin D. And especially during the winter, we don't get the sun. And if you're not taking a supplement during the winter, all of a sudden we have all sorts of issues with our mood. And we're like, why? I have seasonal depression. And oh my gosh, I hear this all the time. And I'm like, you're low in D, like you're low in vitamin, you need some vitamin D. Like, we need to boost your dopamine, and we need it yesterday. Like, honestly. Yeah. And it's something that people just don't do. And you see a lot of mood swings through the winter. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, the sun's out now, I'm in a good mood because it's not gloomy. And I'm like, okay. Kind of. Mm-hmm. Might also have something with that D level of 19.
Every single cell type in the entire body has vitamin D receptors on the surface. So it could be important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Could be. And just because you're in range doesn't mean you're in a great range. Optimal is about 70 to 80. Yeah. People are always like, really? Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing that's tough about that is anybody that is fortunate enough to have their primary care physician run their vitamin D. If it's 30.001, they'll tell them you're great, you're perfect. And that's really just the bare minimum, right? So I've always said at least 55 to 70 is a great optimal range. Autoimmune and cancer, usually 70 to 100. And we've been scared about the toxicity issues by the industry. You got to get way up there before you have anything going wrong.
Yep. Never seen it. Have you ever heard of anybody dying from vitamin C for vitamin D toxicity? Haven't seen it in the literature. Have you?
No. And one thing I think a super important thing for folks to know, and you probably do this with your patients, is if they're low, there are tons of clinical studies where they'll give people 100,000, 200, 300,000 units all at once in a bolus or a dose, just to get them out of the gutter quickly so they can have the benefits of having adequate D. Usually if I find somebody,
Go ahead.
Oh no, if I find somebody that's below 30, I'll put them on usually 10,000 IU a day for a month. And that'll probably get them up around 40, 45. And then I'll usually taper them down to 5,000 IU, and they'll gradually climb to 55. That's really the bare minimum though, Susie, as you said. But the other thing, and I don't know what your take on this is, but protein, right? I spent the last few months healing a femur.
I remember we had this conversation on how much protein you need to have post-op, and you're like, what? That's a lot, Susie. And I'm like,
It's a lot. And the only caveat for people is if you have any kind of kidney compromise, certainly, heads up, don't overload protein. But the average postmenopausal woman should be getting a lot more than they are, right?
Absolutely.
And skeletal muscle is really so directly connected to how we age. And if you're low on skeletal and strength, it's a direct relationship to how frail and how aged you can be and will be. So plenty of protein and resistance exercise is huge, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
And looking at supplements that everyone should take, I love this. We got some things going on here. Like Steve mentioned, vitamin D is definitely a necessity.
No brainer.
Magnesium. I mean, there's magnesium everybody's depleted in, and they don't even realize it. You're usually tanked by the end of the day. You're tanked by the first thing in the morning. And there's certain ones that are great and certain ones that don't absorb well. And I see that you did note that not oxide. So just so you guys know, magnesium oxide actually we use if I need someone to poop. Okay. Right. It is not going to be a magnesium that your body's going to absorb. It is going to, it's going to make you have the runs. And so if I have somebody actually who's constipated, I don't say to take a laxative, I say take some magnesium oxide. Like we'll throw in some Mago 7. We need to get things moving and call it a day. But I would not take magnesium oxide and think that it was giving me any health benefit, and into my cells or anything other than the fact that I am now pooping. So these are absorption. Go ahead. These are your favorites, right?
The absorption is right around 4% for magnesium oxide. So it's and the reason why it makes you poop is it stays in your colon. It doesn't get absorbed into the bloodstream. It stays there. It attracts water, and that's great if you're constipated, but it's doing nothing for your underlying magnesium. And one of the main reasons why we're all low is we burn a ton of magnesium under stress, which there's plenty of. And secondly, the food supply is down about 90% from where it was 50, 60 years ago in terms of inherent magnesium, calcium, iron in the soil. So that's one of my, yeah. And if you're going to get tested for magnesium, definitely do RBC, red blood cell. Seeing a serum magnesium is almost worthless. So just a heads up on that. If you do RBC magnesium and zinc. All right.
What he's saying though, what he's saying here, people, here, I want you to hear this loud and clear. Those of you who are under stress, which is everybody. Okay. Now stress could be work stress, stress could be home stress. Stress could be if you're an athlete, you're a CrossFitter, you're an over exerciser, you're a runner, you're a marathoner, you're a triathlete. Okay. You have small children, you don't sleep well. All right. You're not eating enough. All right. Like all of these are stressors on the body. All right. So if this is you need magnesium. Now the question is, what type of magnesium do you personally need? All right. So we have different types here for different things. So when it comes to like glycinate, this is great for the muscles, Steve. Yes. It's good for, well, what are your favorite? Go ahead.
It's one of my favorites because you get glycine along for the ride. And, you know, there's a few other ones, malate and lactate are pretty nice, but I know you take glycine, right? Separately from other things, or you used to. I think you use it to make glutathione.
Like I'm drinking water. I do.
So yeah, that's why I like that.
I take several different types of magnesium, and that's what you also need to know. You don't just have to choose one, because again, they have different functions. So I take 3 of these. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all good. And the key to know is that when you look at a label, there's so much mislabeling, especially around magnesium. You need to know what level of elemental magnesium, because magnesium always tags along with a salt, like glycinate or citrate or whatever. And most often, magnesium's maybe 10, 12, 15% of all those milligrams. So if you're taking 1,000 milligrams of magnesium glycinate or glycinate, you're getting about 150 milligrams, if maybe 120 milligrams of actual magnesium. And that's the number you got to get up to 300 or 400 a day. Exactly. Right? So know the labels, and yeah, for sure. So no, I know 3 and 8 is a popular one for neuroplasticity, and Susie uses it for dream stimulation.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so never ever gonna live this down. You were not. So all right. So magnesium 3 and 8 is super great for focus and brain clarity. All right. So Steve comes out with his product and he sends it to me. He has me test drive everything that he formulates. All right. He formulates this stuff and he's like, hey, try this. All right. And I'm like, all right, I normally take my magnesium glycinate before bed because it helps me get to sleep and relax and feel good. Well, I take 3 and 8. I'm up all night. I'm having crazy dreams. I get a hold of him the next morning and I'm like, I hate you. I did not sleep. What is that? And it's super funny because like a lot of people use this in their sleep aids. Like there's a lot of formulations made that have this in it and people sleep super well with it. Susie does not at all. Doesn't work for me. And it's super interesting too, because your sleep cocktail that you have, okay? I have some people who they take a small amount of that, and I mean, they're not going to wake up for 2 days. Like I looked at the amount of magnesium in there and I did this. I said, I need to test this on a weekend because I need to wake up tomorrow. I'm not kidding. So those of you with sleep issues, no lie. And our daughter took it and she took like maybe a quarter of a thing. I think she was asleep before she went upstairs. She's a mess. Rich was like, don't ever give me that stuff on a weekday. I slept in I missed everything today. And I'm like, okay. And then I've had other people who had the same reaction to that, though, that I did to magnesium threonate, where wide awake, and it just depends. And that's the thing with everything, with every food, with every supplement, it's bio-individual. Okay. So that's the thing you have to understand. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. All right. Your body is made up for you. All of your genes are yours. Your health is yours. The things that your health history, the things that you've had, the things that you have now, your gut, everything is all individualized with you. All right. So when it comes to figuring out what you need, you never want to just throw something at it that everyone else is doing. You want to individualize your nutrition. You want to individualize your health. You want to individualize your supplements. You want to tailor everything specifically for what you need. And sometimes we look at genes. Sometimes we look like, the health history. You look at just the stressors in life of what the body actually needs. We look at labs. We look at all of these different things to say, okay, well, this is really what you need. So always think of that when you're looking at things. Don't just look at the latest, greatest thing and, oh my gosh, it works for everyone else. It's going to work for me.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I agree with you 100%. And, as a formulator, it would be wonderful if everything works for everybody, but it doesn't. And what I try to do is do the 80-20 rule, right? Hopefully you're going to hit the 80%, but you don't always. The reason I went with that cocktail formulation is that it's the one that Dr. Andrew Huberman espouses. Right. But he also says you can use threonate or glycinate.
I know.
Okay, so maybe for him, threonate puts him to sleep. But I agree with you. Yeah, it's very individualized, and you need to be aware of that when you're learning what works for you, for sure.
Absolutely.
And lab work helps a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Omega-3s. I like krill oil, but I also like good quality fish oil. Get them in your body one way or the other. Eat wild salmon.
Steve, what's the difference? What's the difference between krill oil and fish oil?
Okay, so the difference is our cells have an outer wall made, it's called a lipid bilayer that looks like two tadpoles head to head. And krill oil naturally comes in a similar molecular format called a phospholipid format. And so krill oil wants to simply meld into your cells. Fish oil is created differently, and it's oftentimes modified to either an ethyl ester or a triglyceride format, both of which have benefit in the body. I like krill oil because of the phospholipids. It also tends to be much reduced in terms of fish burps because it doesn't sit on the top of your fluid level in your stomach. It comes naturally with some astaxanthin, which is an amazing antioxidant. So that's, if I had to choose, I would choose krill oil, but basically just get some omega-3s in your body because they're anti-inflammatory. They're good for your brain, good for a whole bunch of important reasons.
Yes.
Just don't get it at Costco if you can help it. That's all. or Walmart.
I feel it in my soul. So prebiotics, postbiotics, and probiotics. So people are probably asking, what's the difference between all of these? What is a prebiotic? Prebiotic, people? Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no, it's prebiotic is essentially insoluble fiber that we get when we eat garlic and onions and all sorts of things. And it makes its way down into our lower intestine and it feeds the good guys. And honestly, if that's all you can get, that's great. And unless you've taken a lot of antibiotics and your gut's really in dysbiosis, just feeding those guys is something we don't do in the American diet. We don't get enough fiber, right?
No, absolutely. And everybody always, should I take a probiotic and should I take a prebiotic and what does that look like? And so there are formulations made with pre and probiotics in there. Okay. Now there are certain people that don't do well with prebiotics. So if you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and you throw some inulin in there, a prebiotic, you're going to blow up like a balloon and you're not going to feel good. Not going to be the best option for you. When it comes to a bunch of dysbiosis, if we're looking at candida, gut, at looking at Crohn's, we're looking at, diverticulitis. What I would start first with is a postbiotic. Okay. I would go there first before I added the other things in. Postbiotic is like the short track to the good stuff. Right, Steve? It's just shortcut. Butyrate.
Yeah, and actually I have to give you credit for turning me on to butyrate, which it's one of those subjects, the more you research it, the more doors open. Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. It's a little molecule that your happy, healthy bacteria make in your gut, and it feeds the gut lining. It feeds the colonocytes. All the cells that tile the inside of your colon eat butyrate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So right there, it's extremely important, and it modulates immunity and inflammation in the gut. But the thing that because I always like the complicated stuff, it actually goes into the bloodstream and travels to the central nervous system, and it's the gut-brain connection. It modulates inflammation in the brain, and it also plays a role in the liver and the lungs in terms of an axis between the gut. So it's a messenger in many ways, and it's also food. So it's a really cool molecule, and it's a postbiotic. And the one we have is called True Postbiotic, and it's tributyrin, which is a special form of butyrate. And it's one of our top sellers, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, no, it's gold. Like it's something that like whenever I go into any protocol, if we're killing mold, whatever we're doing, and we're dealing with the gut, they're getting this because they need it. and then we kind of work our way backwards as we're eliminating bacteria, as things are calming down. Then we're going to be adding in the probiotics, and we'll be adding in the prebiotics. We'll take that in chunks just so it's not a big throat punch, because as you are killing off bacteria in the gut, it's going to release all sorts of gases as well, and that can create a lot of symptoms where you can become bloated, you can become gassy, you can actually feel worse than you normally did just having SIBO itself. And it's funny because a lot of times people will, if they're not working with a practitioner that's working with them consistently on the daily, okay, they'll given a plan, given a program, they'll leave and they'll be like, I took my supplements 2 days in and I stopped because I felt terrible. Well, okay, that's because you were killing things. Like you can back down a little bit to calm things down a little bit, but stopping is not the right answer. We want to make sure that we're like, that's a good sign. And a lot of people will abandon ship right there and be like, well, they gave me this stuff and this stuff made me worse. And they just don't understand the whole process of what's happening. So there's a whole method in doing it. And the postbiotics is definitely what I start with first.
Yeah, it's a cleaner way to support that environment without any extraneous effects happening, right?
Absolutely.
I do, and I know certainly inulin with SIBO is a bad idea. We do have a pre/probiotic, and the thing that makes that special is that we put beta glucan in there, and beta 1316 glucan. It's an immune stimulant. Basically, it gets your natural killer cells fired up and ready to respond, and a little bit of vitamin C too. So for somebody that doesn't have anything going on with their gut and they're just looking for a nice solid probiotic, if you will, that one's awesome. But most of the folks that you're working with, Susie, and I'm working with, they need, delicate handling, especially at the beginning. So butyrate's a nice one. Tributyrin.
Absolutely. Polyphenols. I always tell everybody, eat the rainbow. People, every day you should eat the rainbow, meaning get your polyphenols in. They are a necessary thing for your body. Especially when it comes to killing mold, we have to really pump up the polyphenols in the body so the body handles everything better. And you've got a lot of good things to support polyphenols. Didn't you just come out with a new supplement? Did you just read?
I reformulated one, and it's called Polyphenol Max now. And I really hit polyphenols hard. I added in luteolin, which I adore, and I always screw that word up, but it comes from pomegranate, and there's ellagic acid and punicalagins, and these are extremely effective antioxidants, if you will. As a matter of fact, a lot of polyphenols are used in cancer therapy to make the chemo drugs more effective at a lower dose. And that's kind of, not that usually when somebody is working on cancer, they either put all their faith in their oncologist and don't want to stray outside of that protocol, which is fine. I get it, right? But boy, polyphenols as a cancer protective, in my book, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And then we have inflammation with curcumin. So I got a story for you guys. I've got stories. So curcumin is it's used for a lot of different things. There's a lot of supplements that get used for different things, and usually people lean towards this if we're dealing with inflammation. So if I always look at diet first, let's move the inflammatory foods out first. But if we're still having issues, let's get the body to calm down. Now, I found another use for curcumin today. So ready, Steve? Did you know that curcumin can lower blood pressure?
Well, it's interesting that you ask, because curcumin is, I call it one of God's two main gifts to mankind, because curcumin and berberine both, they're like, they work in so many ways and do so many wonderful things for us that it's hard to really, there's at least 25,000 studies on PubMed on curcumin. I would not have immediately gone there for blood pressure, but that's great to know.
Yeah.
I know, carnitine, obviously, but wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to disagree with your slide here on the fact of which supplements you should take every day, and I want to know why berberine isn't on here, because you brought up berberine and
it's a mistake.
Yeah.
I put this slideshow together in a hurry, and when you hurry, you make mistakes. And berberine is, man, it's right after vitamin D and magnesium. To be honest with you, it's huge.
Berberine is one of those herbs. It is an antimicrobial. It's everything. It's the everything supplement. It'll help blood sugar, blood pressure. Yeah. It helps with literally everything. Like it's one of the things we use metabolically to help people for weight loss. Like they say it's equal to metformin. How about it?
It is. It is. The only place it doesn't match up to metformin is painful side effects.
Yes.
I've done a ton of research on metformin because I do a lot of research in metabolic disease, right? More than half the people that get put on metformin stop taking it because of what it does to your GI, right? Mm-hmm. Berberine is as good or better than metformin for blood sugar, and it's significantly better for cholesterol. So everybody that's taken metformin, God, I just wish they knew about berberine. They'd be so much less miserable.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it should be on this list for sure.
Yes. Okay. So what's to look for in your supplements? Form and dose are everything. And he's right. You really get what you pay for. Like that is.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that they add things in supplements like fillers? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like you're not just getting, like, so you're getting curcumin, or it's not just curcumin. You'll be like, why is there rice in? Like you look at the ingredients, why is there rice in here? Like what is that? So Steve formulates things. So Steve, explain the process of formulation.
Okay, so it is I don't want to call it a game, but it kind of is, because the average supplement carries, each capsule holds about 600 to 700 milligrams. So if you have a supplement and you only want to put in 100 milligrams of your active ingredient because it's kind of expensive, you're going to fill that capsule up with something else that's less expensive, which is like magnesium stearate or rice hulls or something like that. A lot of the really large companies that make supplements, changing the cost of a capsule by 25 cents is huge to their bottom line. So if they can cut corners, they're going to, because they're making hundreds of thousands of bottles of this stuff, right? And so anyway, yes, many, if not most of your big brand names have stuff in there from an economic standpoint, not from a nutritional standpoint. There are agents you have to put in there so it flows nicely through the product line into the capsule, flow agents, all sorts of stuff. I have the luxury of filling my capsules with exactly what I want to. And sometimes it costs a little more, but that's fine because I know that you're not getting a bunch of crap that you don't need. So
that's the one thing that I do appreciate. Like I don't have to worry that there's something else in there. It's just what I'm looking for.
Yep.
And so sticking with the brands that you know and trust, that's always a good thing because there's just a lot of stuff out there. Every day you're on the shelf and it looks like a good deal, right? It's pretty. It says it has that many things on it. It's gonna make me beautiful. It's gonna make me feel better, right?
Right. And that leads perfectly into a dual subject of proprietary blend and fairy dusting. Fairy dusting means everybody knows they need to take curcumin, let's say, or everybody knows that whatever the hot topic of the moment is hot. So people will put it on their label, just a few milligrams of it, so the name's on there, and rely on the fact that the consumer has no idea how many milligrams that they need for an effect. The two things that matter most are form and dose of any ingredient, right? If you're not taking the right form or the right amount, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And the most expensive supplement out there is the one that you either can't absorb or don't need, right?
Oh, that's
So fairy dusting means labeling in such a way that makes you think you're getting more than you're getting. And the proprietary blend, I have to take responsibility. I did use that on one supplement, and I'm going to change it in the future because it just makes people feel like
wrong with you.
What's that?
It probably sits wrong with you. You're like,
it does. It does sit wrong with me.
I know
you. So proprietary blend means they say there's 1,500 milligrams of the following ingredients, and then they list 20 things.
And you're like, how much of what is in there? Of what? I wanted.
Totally.
I don't know.
To a large degree, that's why they do it. It is generally the case that the first one listed is the most and the last one listed is the least. But that's
like
not
that, just so you guys know, it's like that with all labels. Like if you're looking at food labels and everything else, the biggest ingredient in there that's going to carry the most weight is going to be at the beginning, and it tailors down to the end. So so when you're looking at these things, you can be, if you're looking for a specific ingredient and it's at the end and you need a high dose of that, probably not going to be getting that.
Yeah. And I also think it is not, I don't want to say dishonest, but it's not as forthright as it could be.
Right.
I mean, astaxanthin, right? Wonderful molecule. You need at least 6, 8, 10 milligrams of astaxanthin. I've seen labels, but first of all, they don't tell you how much, or they'll put the trick 400 mcg, which is 0.4 milligrams.
Right.
And they're relying on the fact that most people don't know that mcg means micrograms, which is 1/1000th. So it is what it is, right? Go with people you trust.
Yeah, so we want to also avoid oxides and cyanoforms. So we talked about oxide being not something that's not very bioavailable. Cyano is synthetic. Okay, so that's when we're looking at synthetic versions of something, which is going to take us right into our B vitamins, which is very important as we discuss this specifically.
Exactly.
So go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Start with energy production, neurotransmitters, DNA. We've got so much to cover here. I got pages. Go.
Yeah, so I'll let you handle B vitamins for the most part. All I want to say is, if you ask anybody why they take B vitamins, they're thinking energy production, right? And they're thinking B12. And there are a lot of companies or a lot of practices that give B12 shots that people don't need. And once again, if you test yourself for B12, don't test serum B12. You got to test methylmalonic acid, right? And it's expensive. That is probably like 6 times as costly as a regular serum B12. But if you do go get a shot of B12, you should feel something if you need it. If it was needed, you will be feeling it. And if not, you didn't need it. So B vitamins are super important cofactors. Take it away.
No, yeah, I mean, they're important for the energy. They're important for your neurotransmitters, your DNA synthesis, your red blood cells. I mean, they're a critical thing. B vitamins are water soluble. Okay, I want to start with that. A lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm taking a lot of B vitamin. I took 2 doses. Is that too much? B vitamins are water soluble, meaning if you took too much, you're going to pee it out. Okay. Fat soluble vitamins, they will stay with you. They can become toxic. Those are things you worry about. Okay. But B vitamins, you can pee them out, just so you know. We're going to start with that. Now, there are different forms of B vitamins, and that are actually super important for people, every person. Again, I talked about bioindividuality and the certain needs for certain people. So there's people with certain genetic SNPs. Okay. SNPs is a single nuclear polymorphism, meaning if you were looking at it, it's where something's kind of not right in your genes. Okay. Let me gangsplain that, right? And there is a gene called the MTHFR gene mutation. And there's a few versions of this, but there's 2 that are most widely known in C677T and A1828A. Okay. One of them, these 2 are the most studied. Okay. Now, why is this important? Well, if you have this, actually, I'm gonna pop over to the next screen, because we're gonna take you on a little road trip. We'll come back to this. And you're like, oh my gosh, Susie, what the heck is that? This is your methylation roadmap. Okay. So methylation is the precursor for all of your detoxification. Okay. Think about it this way. Your body has to detoxify every day. Okay. So you're breathing things in, you're eating things, you're taking medications, everything gets absorbed into your body, and your body has to actually deal with it. All right. So this is that you just don't sit there. It has to process through, and your body needs to go through processes of methylation and detoxification. And so what we have here is we've got precursors for detoxification. So your major detoxification is glutathione. Okay. That's what the whole game is. All right. So if we were to come down, can you see my little arrow? I'm gonna highlight this. Glutathione, can't see that. Ah! I should not be trusted with a clicker. Don't come back to me. At the very bottom, off to the right, you see glutathione. Okay. That is what everybody wants to get to. Now, if we were to look at the 3rd circle in the middle, okay, this is where the MTHFR gene mutation would kind of come into play. So if you had this gene, all right, the whole goal here is we are transferring methyl groups over to each other, to the other circle, trying to get to SAMI in that 4th circle. SAMI's kind of like, I like to say SAMA. SAMI delivers the goods. All right. So as we're passing these methyl groups off, SAMI's goal is to get down through the transsulfuration pathway. That's that big line underneath, okay, to create glutathione. In order for this to happen, though, there's a lot of things that have to happen, okay? Meaning, first and foremost, you have to have the right form of B9, all right? So B9 is folate, all right? Now, most people know folate as being an important thing for birth defects, and they know it because I'm pregnant, and your doctor will say, oh my gosh, you need folic acid, okay? Because that would prevent birth defects, all right? That's back in the day, to secure that even better, all right, we're having a lot of issues, neurotube defects, so the government started actually fortifying foods, that's right, with B vitamins, all right. Now, if you have the MTHFR gene mutation, the synthetic form of folate coming in folic acid is not good for you, okay? It's not, your body's not going to process it well. It's actually going to block your folate receptors, all right? So you need to take it in a different form. It could come in the form of methyl tetrahydrofolate. It could come in the form of folinic acid. It just can't come in the form of folate acid or folic acid. Okay. So, which is different from folinic acid. If you do, like I said, it'll block your folate receptors, and it's going to throw this whole cycle off. All right. Now, also, there's other nutrients that are needed in here for this. Like, for instance, you need riboflavin, you need B2. You need choline, you need B12, you need TMG, which is it's trimethylglycine. You need your B vitamins, copper, zinc, iron, chromium. You need a lot of things to make all of this happen. Now, back again to the whole SNPs and the whole B12 thing. All right. So there is, if you were to look in the 2nd circle, and you see this is your neurotransmitter cycle. So you have your urea cycle is the first one, neurotransmitter is the second one, your folate cycle is the third, your methionine is the fourth, and then down that little one down is your transsulfuration cycle. I know I'm totally talking Chinese for all of you. Just bear with me for a second. So in that second cycle, all right, if you look below, you see serotonin, you see dopamine, and you're like, okay, hang on, these are neurotransmitter things. Right. Okay, these are things that can make you not feel great if this cycle is off. So the COMT gene, the COMT gene actually lines up in there. Now, this is the deal. If you have genetic SNPs, there's two different variations of the COMT gene. Oh, how am I sticking up? Because I always mess this up. It's right there. Yeah, that's right. Good like that. It's H62H and V15ADM. Okay, so if you had ran your genes and you have those genetic SNPs, okay, taking methyl B12 might not do you well in any way, shape, or form. I have had people who have this SNP and I give them B12, methylated B12, and they literally thought they were going crazy. Okay. And the other thing is methylated vitamins also will release histamine. So if you have issues with histamine, because you have gut issues, that might give you a problem as well. So I really like to rely on adenosine hydroxy when it comes to doing B12, because that's a safer version. It's not going to make anybody crazy. I don't have to, if I don't, especially if I don't know their genes. And also, it's not going to kick up histamines. So there's certain things that are just important. But so what I want to talk to you guys really about though is this: as we're transferring, like I said, these methyl groups over, we're trying to get into SAMe. Okay, so if you, like I said, you look down that line of homocysteine, all right, and we're trying to get down to glutathione. A lot of times, sometimes that cycle can upregulate. All right. Like if you have gut issues or you have issues with the CBS gene, and if it upregulates, it can throw the whole chain off. Like it can give reactive oxidative species. It can throw literally everything off. So I'm gonna tell a little story about a girl named Sue. That's me. I was working on my transsulfuration pathway. I was having issues with sulfur at the time. Okay, so when you're dealing with that, I stopped taking B6 because that was a good call if you're dealing with sulfur. All right, now, not thinking about this at all, Susie takes away B6. Susie starts having panic attacks. Susie doesn't have panic attacks ever. Okay. I am literally bat crap crazy for like 3 weeks. Like I'm walking into grocery stores and I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out all day long. I don't even know who I am. I think I'm crawling out of my skin. I run labs and I do the oat test and I look and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Oh wow, I need B6. I really need some B6. I can look at my neurotransmitters. That ain't good. I'm not kidding. I took B6, which is a cofactor for all of your neurotransmitters. We're going to get to that section in a little bit. I was right as rain in 20 minutes. So it's amazing the power that a lot of these supplements have if you need them. Okay. And if you stop taking them and you feel big effects from not taking them, you obviously need them badly. So for me, that was a necessary thing. And that's, a cofactor for a lot of different things. Move back to the slide. So anyway, I jumped on us. I want to talk about PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. You guys know what those are? They are fun. Proton pump inhibitors will, they block acid in your stomach, and they also leach calcium from your bones. They also deplete you of vitamin B12. There's something that is supposed to be given for a very short period of time to calm something down, but that's not what happens. Doctors hand them out like candy and stick you on them for years. Okay, so I was that person. Again, Susie's story. I know, I have a lot of them. I was that person who had super bad acid reflux and didn't know what was the problem. And they put me on, I was literally on Protonics, 40 milligrams twice a day, uncontrolled. And I went to my doctor and I was like, you need to figure out why. I want to know why. And he's like, oh, we never did an endoscopy on you. And I'm like, do it. Okay. And if there's surgery or whatever, and he's like, I never recommend this to anyone. Like nobody ever gets the surgery. I went in and I got a call from the surgeon the next day and they were like, we need to see you right away. So basically I had a hiatal hernia, which opened up my LES. So your lower esophageal sphincter, okay, is the gateway into the stomach, esophagus down to the stomach. And if you have a hiatal hernia, which is where a portion of your stomach is trapped up into your diaphragm, it will keep that thing wide open. So you have acid reflux. How about that? You have GERD. Now, mine was broken on top of it. Like it was floppy. They had to take the top portion of my stomach and wrap it around my esophagus to tighten it down. Now, because I was on such high amounts of acid blockers for so long, I have no stomach acid, literally none, because it lowers your stomach acid. All right. PPIs will make you feel better, but they're also going to lower your stomach acid and make it so you cannot digest food well, and you will not absorb nutrients well. Yes. So I have no stomach acid. I have to take not just 3 digestive enzymes every time I eat, but I have to take about, if I'm going to have an animal protein, 8 hydrochloric acids on top of that in order for my food to digest. So it's not something that you should be on for long term. And there's so many effects that come from that. So, and again, leaches calcium out of the bone. So I see a lot of people with osteopenia, osteoporosis in their 60s and 70s. And 2 things are happening. You know, one, we're looking at the fact that, you know, they were on PPIs and it just really leached a lot of calcium from them. You know, I mean, it's a cycle. So, moving down into homocysteine, I want to touch on this. So when I talked about the B vitamins and why they're important, okay, B vitamins keep homocysteine levels at bay. Homocysteine levels, it's an enzyme in the body that if it gets high, you're at risk for heart attacks and strokes. Okay, it's a marker we look for inflammation. It's a marker we look for when we're on labs. And if that thing is sitting high, I mean, the answer is we got to get B vitamins in it to the right ones to stabilize things, but also find out what's causing the inflammation. So if you've had labs done and your homocysteine levels were high, may need some B vitamins and understand the right ones, but be looking for the root cause. Do you want to add to any of this?
No, very nice job. The only thing I would say is definitely, well, the only thing you didn't mention was intrinsic factor, and that's kind of interesting because it tends to decline as we age. And sometimes you'll need to take a B12 with intrinsic factor.
Yes.
But yeah, the whole PPI thing's a hot mess. And it's a
They give it
shame.
out like candy. I mean, they give it out like candy, and it's something that nobody gets taken off of. I mean, they're on it for years. And
well, it's actually when you suppress those little proton pumps, in many cases, if you ever stop suppressing them, they rebound so hard that patients are almost unable to get off the medication. The way that I've done it, and it's not perfect, but it's better, is to switch them to some of the older generation antacids like Tagamet and Zantac. And those are histamine blockers, and that can help, but it's difficult to stop.
I just took somebody in their 60s who's been on forever off of, got them successfully off of them. And it's just figuring out the right doses of digestive enzymes. And that's the thing. She needed a digestive enzyme badly. I mean, her food was not breaking down well. I mean, and like I said, like it lowers your stomach acid, so you can't absorb nutrients, people. So there's ways of getting off it. It's so great though. Yeah.
Onward. What do we got?
Speaking of digestion.
Well, this is kind of a recap.
Too much.
I actually, I defer to you on a lot of this digestive stuff, Susie. I think you're, I know it, but you live it day to day with a lot of folks. So I'll let you run with this one if you like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to digestive enzymes, I'm looking for all the right Like that, you'll see digestive enzymes with a bunch of different foods in them. You'll see a lot of different versions of things. We're looking for pancreatic enzymes. I want to find something that has HCl in it, low hydrochloric acid, some bile in it. That's to help with just the breakdowns of fats. There's people that don't understand why, I don't know, I had my gallbladder removed and I have diarrhea all the time. Well, and that's the thing, doctors don't let you know, well, you need to be on a digestive enzyme that has ox bile in it. It has a bile, something to help you break down fats. And those of you who have had that, you've had that, your gallbladder removed, and you basically, I've had so many people who, I don't leave the house. I don't go out with my family. Why? Because I need to poop every 5 seconds. I have diarrhea and I can't. And we get them on a digestive enzyme and they're like, where has this been my whole life? And they're just not educated post-op. They're just not. But some people just don't break down fats well because they just don't have enough stomach acid, or they just don't have enough bile coming out and everything else because of the foods they've eaten, how they've cared for themselves, the stress. Stress lowers stomach acid, people. Stress is a real deal on all parts of the body, So and you can have infections in the gut. H. pylori, that can mess things up. Did you know, Steve, that H. pylori is one of the biggest stealers of iron? Like if I see somebody who is low on iron all the time, okay, like they just can't get it up. It's either H. pylori, Epstein-Barr, or SIBO, and they're stealers of iron. So always having to, if you're one of those people who just chronically can never get their iron levels up, got to look a little deeper as to why.
Actually, I guess I wouldn't have thought of that right off the bat, but one of the things that H. pylori does to make it better for itself is it lowers stomach acid, right? It makes it more comfortable.
Yep.
And that inhibits your ability to absorb iron, right? So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. 35 to 40% of the population on the planet has H. pylori. And a lot of people don't even know it. Sometimes they're completely asymptomatic, or sometimes they're a hot mess, right? And it's really all over the place. It can be communicable just by kissing. So heads up to folks that, it's something we can help get rid of for sure. But if you've got just a bunch of symptoms that don't make any sense, certainly H. pylori is a good place to rule out something.
Oh yeah, a lot of nausea,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of diarrhea, just not feeling so hot. I've had a lot of college students where, H. pylori, like you said, the kissing, it happens. H. pylori, asking around, like mono.
Yep.
Mono and stomach.
Stomach mono.
Right?
All right, what do we got next?
So brain, the nutrition. I talked about B6 already. I told you guys that B6 is definitely great for your neurotransmitters, and how obviously oh my gosh, you guys, my serotonin levels, everything just cracked. It was a mess. I cried for days, and I was just literally a disaster. But also, for melatonin production. Melatonin is the yin to the yang to cortisol. So melatonin should be high at night when you sleep. Cortisol levels should be lowered when you sleep, and they should be at their highest when you wake up in the morning, and they kind of go through a flow. By the end of the day, they should be tapered off, and melatonin should start creeping up.
Yeah, one of the things I was just looking at before we got on with regard to the brain, nutrition is obviously huge, but blood flow is as important, if not more so.
Oh my gosh.
And I saw a statistic, 40% of males over 40, I think it was some coincidental number like that, have erectile dysfunction, which means your vascular system, your blood vessels are not happy and healthy. And it was something like 70% of the guys over 70. So if you're having ED, that means inherently you're also not getting blood flow to the brain in an adequate fashion.
Right.
So, cardiometabolic, once again, there's just, I always look for, like I said, the 80-20, and inflammation and oxidative stress are, at the end of the day, the two enemies of health.
Oh, 100%.
And anything you can do to fight inflammation or oxidative stress is going to benefit everybody, right? Oxidative stress, a lot of people kind of get they don't know what oxidative stress is. Think of your cells almost like your car, and the mitochondria are the engine, and they generate exhaust. We call it ROS, or reactive oxygen species. That's why we take polyphenols. That's why we eat from the rainbow, because those antioxidants quench that exhaust and they keep it from damaging everything around it. So, the brain, you got to keep that blood going. And it's funny because as we age, oftentimes our blood pressure tends to slowly creep up. And there's a lot of thought behind the fact that perhaps because our blood vessels are getting a little less resilient and we need a little more pressure to get the flow up to the brain and get adequate flow rate, the body knows exactly what it's doing by increasing the blood pressure slightly as we age,
Right.
to perfuse the brain, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the gut-brain connection, people, let's talk about this for a second. You might have heard about this, you might not have heard about this, but let me put this to you in a very simplistic way. 80% of your neurotransmitters are in your gut. Your neurotransmitters, your dopamine, serotonin, your GABA, epinephrine, like all these guys, they play in 80%. Okay, so think about it this way. You know how if you get super upset emotionally about something, you feel nauseous. Like all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, my stomach doesn't feel good. Well, the gut-brain connection works both ways. All right. So, and it actually works more from the gut up to the head. How about that? So same thing, having an emotional feeling and all of a sudden I don't feel well. If your gut is unhealthy, your brain's going to be all over the place, meaning you can have a lot of mood issues. You can have ADHD, you can have ADD, you can have some depression, you can have all of your neurotransmitters not functioning well just because of the health of your gut.
Yeah.
So we're looking at things like the short chain fatty acids with tributane, another thing to help promote that. Like Steve talked about earlier, that factor of going to the brain, it's a great thing to help with that.
Yeah. And not just mood or anxiety or whatever, it's dementia, it's Alzheimer's. It's, the inflammation in the gut is translated to the brain and it precipitates that kind of neurocognitive decline. So that's no brainer.
Right. So magnesium is another one of those cofactors for neurotransmitters. Like I talked about when I said B6 was one of the cofactors. There's three that are really, really big ones, and that's magnesium, zinc, and B6. They're all massive cofactors for the brain to all of your neurotransmitters to function. So when people come to me and they're like, hey, I've got a lot of anxiety, I always start, let's start with the cofactors first. Like maybe you don't have enough of the things to make the things. Let's just start with that. And I've been on anxiety medication for the longest time, or I've been, on all sorts of medication. Well, hang on, how are you deficient in these things? And usually magnesium, for sure you are, like stress.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. Vitamin D, depression, body pain, metabolic disease. Vitamin D is huge. Just take it, please.
Yeah.
I don't care where you get it. Just take it.
Hey, talk to me about spermidine.
Oh, I love that stuff. Tough name, really tough name, but it's one of my favorite little molecules. The family that it comes from are called polyamines, and they are ubiquitous. They're throughout the system. They're very involved in DNA replication and making sure we make good copies when we make copies. The thing that always comes into my brain when I think of spermidine is a study called the Bruneck study. And it's one of the most significant studies I've ever seen. They followed about 900 people for 20 plus years. And it was in a little city called Bruneck in northern Italy. And the reason they picked this city was it had a really good medical center, but they also had less than 0.1% population transfer every year. So people moving in, people moving out just basically didn't happen. So they knew they could track these people and watch them very carefully. And they looked at their diet, like super analytically, everything they ate. And they found that if they divided people into three groups, like highest, medium, and lowest, in terms of foods that they ate with spermidine in them, The ones that had the highest lived 5.7 years longer than the ones that had the lowest. And the two things that they didn't die from were heart disease and cancer.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of studies on spermidine, but that's the one that's just, I mean, 5.7 years. It's a big deal, especially when you're 75 or 80, right? So spermidine is found in foods, peas, mushrooms, natto, things like that. There are two forms that you can get in supplements. One of them does come from wheat. So it's got, I think, 1 milligram of gluten per serving, whereas a piece of toast has 5,000 milligrams. So it's still gluten. If you're celiac, don't take it in that form. It's one of those ones that you only need a few milligrams. 3 milligrams of spermidine is a lot. It is a longevity type of product, and it's big in neurocognitive decline. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
My favorite supplement is NMN.
NMN.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, David Sinclair is trying to take it away from you. Have you heard that whole brouhaha?
No.
David Sinclair.
You emailed me about it, and I'm not listening.
So he's the Harvard geneticist that really brought it to the fore about 7-8 years ago. Well, behind the scenes, he was trying to patent a form of NMN and make it as a new drug. And so he's done that. And there's a decent chance that NMN will be pulled as a supplement because it will be being introduced as a drug.
My gosh.
And so he promoted the bejesus out of it.
Okay, so those of you who don't know, it is phenomenal for the brain and for focus. And like, it's just, I call it my crack. Like, it is such that combined with magnesium threonate. Oh yeah. You don't need coffee. You don't need like the mushrooms for the mental clarity or anything else. You need this. Like it is people with brain fog. Like this is one of those things that can get you out of it. Like when I have people who've have mold exposures, I'm like, oh my gosh, you need the mag and NMN. Like get it down. Like it's just
so what it does is it increases NAD levels in your mitochondria, right? And so when we're 20 years old, we have about twice as much as we do when we're 50. And it's just one of those things that declines, just like spermidine. They all decline as we age, and that's part of aging. But if there are safe, natural, available things that you can do to forestall aging, and they don't cause any side effects, I usually think that's a good idea. NMN's a big deal. And I will have it. I'll have it. Don't worry, you're never going to run out of it, even if David gets his way.
That's my boy.
So, yeah. What else?
Wait, hang on. We skipped. Hang on. Got happy over here with the clickers.
Vitamin C. This is me being funny, but curiosity, right? Being stimulated about something you're passionate about is vitamin C. Keeping your brain engaged in things that interest you, and I don't care what they are.
Yeah.
That's a great way to keep your brain healthy. It's huge, as is spirituality, community, love, connection, etc. Those are, I mean, that's the best thing out there.
Oh, 100%. And omegas for the brain, for inflammation. Whenever I have stroke patients, or I have autistic, or I have brain injuries, we go so hard on omegas. It's just phenomenal for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the neurotransmitter support that I was talking about. That you've got the cofactors, which are zinc, magnesium, and B6. And I have a lot of this was a big request, Steve. I had a lot of people email and say, "Hey, can you please talk about anxiety? Can you please talk about what you do for people for anxiety?" Okay, so for starters, again, you have the cofactors. And then based off of, I usually send out a questionnaire and looking at different symptoms, all right? And based off of that, there's certain amino acids that actually can really help support everything to make you feel better, all right? It's crazy because a lot of people will be on medications and medications won't work, or they have a lot of side effects to this. when you use amino acid support, okay, now, first of all, you have to do it away from food. So the neuroside doesn't absorb protein side, because so amino acids are like the basis of everything in your body. All right. So we're just going to pick targeted specific ones and add them in. So if I have somebody who's got a lot of issues with depression and they're just really struggling, GABA, I would throw in some GABA. If we're dealing with low serotonin, I would do 5-HTP. Ladies, all right, estrogen and progesterone, all right. So around mid-cycle, estrogen dips, and a lot of people will feel crazy. Okay, all of a sudden they'll be like, not even PMS, mid-cycle. If you add 5-HTP, 5-HTP is the sister for estrogen. It can come right back up and you can feel normal again. Progesterone, the sister is GABA. Okay, so when we have people that are postpartum, now progesterone it's been super high, everything's been glorious, and now I got nothing, and they're just a mess. We throw in some GABA. Okay, we're going to help balance that out. If we're dealing with ADHD, or even just not having the right, just the gumption to even do things. We look at inositol, we look at L-tyrosine. L-glutamine is kind of like the base. Everybody needs that, and same thing with omegas. Omegas are super good for the brain support. So we use a very targeted approach for this. And Steve knows, he's done this with me. Doesn't it work great?
Yeah, it does. It does. We left one off of this list, and it's theanine.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's anti-anxiety in a bottle, basically,
No,
and
absolutely.
ADHD. So L-theanine, couple hundred to 400 milligrams, works like a charm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, I agree with you. One thing I would also say, and not to speak to the hormonal stuff, but just in general, I think it's important that people know that the studies that were used to validate serotonin reuptake inhibitors were massively manipulated, and exercise was as good or better than most of those drugs in almost every single trial. And just move your body.
SSRIs are the worst. SSRIs are the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. So please know that Pfizer and all the folks that make zillions of dollars off of antidepressants, it's a racket. It's almost as bad as statins, if not worse. I really think we're in a time now where, I've been in the natural world for so long, but I think the average person now is really starting to wonder, after the whole pandemic and all the misinformation, there's a lot of pushback on what we've always just taken as gospel from the medical community. And
that's an understatement.
Antidepressants, bisphosphonates for bone density, a huge joke. Probably the only ones that come close to as bad as the antidepressants were the bisphosphonates. Right. They will take they'll make your jaw fall apart if that's what you're looking for, but they're not going to do a whole lot else for you. So
right.
Please do your own research.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So metabolic health. This is your favorite thing to talk about. Let's go.
I know. My poor wife. All right. So here's the deal.
Bless Debbie.
40, she's a saint. She's like, imagine, Susie, the number of times I ask you if you've seen this study, right? She lives next to it. Ugh.
Debbie, I'm so sorry. If you guys only knew, you don't even know. Susie, check out this. I'm working, I'm cranking, I'm going through all the things, and see, here's another study. Can you read this? Every day. There could be, and he knows, like, he would send me 5 a day. If I bit back, at least 5 a day.
No, I don't. I like to try and maintain my friendships, so I stopped doing that. Okay, metabolic disease is a big deal, though, and here's why. 40 plus million diabetics in the US, probably another 60 pre-diabetic or undiagnosed. Fatty liver is even bigger than that. basically look around. Not everybody, but obesity and metabolic dysfunction is epidemic, right? And that's for a number of reasons. A lot of it has to do with the food supply and what we're eating and what tastes good. But we need to get a handle on it because we're dying. We're dying in droves, and it's expensive, and we're paying for it. So my big thing is cardiometabolic disease, and probably the number one place you can work on that is through improving your insulin resistance, and that's exercise and watching carbs. Not terribly difficult. Most of these serious things, if you drop 5% of your body weight, you can make a huge dent in the problem. And then I do also carry some things that I love that really work well for fatty liver and that kind of stuff. So I will shamelessly plug Metavasc and Burgapure. They're amazing. They are kind of a well-kept secret up till now, but they're going to be getting some more attention. Anyway, if you're not dealing with metabolic dysfunction and you're not carrying extra weight, that's awesome. There's just so many people that are, and it's like I said, it's so expensive. A liver transplant is about $1 million all in, if you can get one, right? So the average lifetime cost for a type 2 diabetic is about $150,000. And guess what? They're on Medicare, so we're paying those bills, folks. We got to start eating better. We got to start losing weight. So I'll stop. But it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And reversing fatty liver is not a hard thing to do. A lot of people get really freaked out and they're like, oh my gosh, it's not hard. It's taking care of yourself. It's eating the right foods. It's taking the right supplements. Like you said, the Metavasc and Burgapure, that's the first thing I go to with people. I'm like, good, we're going to take this. It's going to help a lot. It's lifestyle, it's diet, it's all the things.
Yeah. The tricky thing with fatty liver is the liver is a workhorse, and it does not tell you there's a problem until it's too late. And I think globally, 30% of people now have fatty liver to some degree. If you let it go, it can move into fibrosis and cirrhosis and liver cancer in worst case scenarios. Not everybody. We're coming out with a cardiometabolic test that, among several things, looks at fatty liver index. So you can take your triglycerides and a couple other markers, and you can see, should I be concerned about this? Right. Hopefully not. But if you are, then you can work on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Berberine, we talked about that already. It rolls with everything, and it's phenomenal for metabolic health and weight loss. Like it's the go-to.
Yep.
And same thing with the polyphenols.
Yeah.
Just they're such good things. And curcumin and NFKB.
NFKB, nuclear factor kappa B, it's the fountainhead of inflammation. It is where all inflammation really comes from. And curcumin does a bang up job keeping it under control. And curcumin also is anti-cancer. That's something we don't think about a lot, but in India, where people have curcumin in their diets, the rates of gastric cancer, stomach cancer, are 1/10 of what they are in this country. So it's a good thing. There, once again, with curcumin, you need to be taking a good quality form because naturally it doesn't absorb well. We could talk for hours and we won't, but just take a good one. Make sure you take a good one. It's an important one. It's just like berberine. It's pleiotropic. It works in many different ways, and they're all good.
Right.
Yeah.
So the number one thing in your life that you're missing, the number one thing that matters most next to your, like this period, it's sleep. And I can't begin to tell you how many, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I sleep when I'm dead. People, sleep is where your body does all of its recovery. It does where it's all of its healing. It's where it is such a critical piece to your health. I can't stress this enough. Like if you do not have good quality sleep, it affects everything. Absolutely everything. So
Yep.
there are certain supplements like we see melatonin being a double-edged sword. I like that. I like that. It is double-edged because people get concerned. Okay, if I start taking melatonin, is my body going to stop making melatonin? Like that's probably, is that the double-edged sword you're referring to?
Yeah, anytime you bring in an outside source of a hormone, first of all, melatonin is one of the best antioxidants ever.
It's
So
up there with vitamin D. Okay, people, like, you need to know this.
yeah,
Everybody thinks, oh my gosh, I'm sick. I'm gonna take my D and I'm gonna take my C and I'm gonna take my zinc. You need to take melatonin. Not only
yeah,
that, it's great for detoxifying the brain. Okay, so when
yep,
I have people that I'm treating for mold, oh my gosh, melatonin, like we have to get the toxins out of the brain, people, and it is
yeah.
phenomenal for that. It's amazing.
The only thing I don't like about it is a lot of people take it for sleep, and they may not need it for sleep. There may be another reason why they're not sleeping well. And by
Yes,
bringing in melatonin on a daily basis, their body's going to get an altered sense of how much they need to make
right,
endogenously, right? But
right.
that's the only downside. It's a great molecule. It's wonderful. I
Agreed.
mean, and then there's our old friend magnesium. There are a
Yeah.
bunch of botanicals that are very well represented in a number of sleep aids: passion flower and valerian and lemon balm and apigenin.
Tryptophan. I'm sorry, go ahead with apigenin.
Oh, apigenin comes from chamomile. It is also in the anti-aging world. So I like apigenin for a bunch of things. It happens to be in the sleep cocktail because it's got that calming chamomile effect,
Yep.
but it's a biggie. And then, yeah, tryptophan is a precursor to 5-HTP that you were speaking about earlier. Theanine's great for calming the mind, and
Right.
sleep hygiene's probably bigger than anything, right? Cool, dark environment. Got to be
Yes.
able to.
I have my gosh, I have the thing called a noise machine.
Oh,
I have my sleep hygiene. Oh my gosh, I am the girl who sleeps with a mask. We drop the temperature in the house very cold. Like your body just does better with this. I have a noise maker going on, blocking everything out. Like you can be yelling down here, I'm not going to hear you. Okay, it is I get it's so important to me. Like it's such an important factor in my life to have good quality sleep, and so I create an incredible environment for sleep. It's
wonderful.
hilarious.
That's huge. That's huge. You got to
But
sleep.
even winding down before you go to bed, you need to like put the computer screens away, do things to decompress, get yourself
Yeah.
ready for sleep. I have set guidelines for myself. Like the work shuts off at a certain time. I don't talk to or read emails that might stress me out 2 hours before bed. Actually, more like 3. Won't even touch it. Won't even
It's not
touch it.
worth it.
I'm not going to have anything mess with my sleep. I will deal with it tomorrow morning, but I'm not going to lay there at night and worry about it, So it's important little things like that.
Yep.
So we are back to magnesium. Hi.
I think we've beaten this horse.
I think we have. I think we can really just move on to beauty. Oh, I think this is what people care about most. I'm not gonna lie. Like I have people come to me with intake forms, Steve, and they can have their arm falling off. They can be in stage 4 cancer. They can have so many things wrong. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to fix all of this. And all they care about is, Susie, take 50 pounds off of me and make me pretty. Like real talk. Like it is. It's such an important thing to everyone, I think, because it's the way you present yourself, it's the way people perceive you, it's all the things. And as we age, our body loses a lot of elasticity, skin, all things change with hormones. And what do you use? There's a lot of different collagens out there. What one is good for me? I don't know. Do you, Steve? Sure you do.
All right. As with so many things, I've spent way too much time reading about this stuff. And here's the deal. Vital Proteins came out about a dozen years ago, right? With that aqua colored tub. And they've been doing a bang up business. I call Vital Proteins cowhide peptide because it is essentially that kind of material just boiled down, right? Here's the thing about collagen. it is essentially just a bunch of amino acids, a big old molecule. And if you just take cowhide peptide, you're dropping these big molecules into the stomach. They need to get chopped up before they can be absorbed. And then they float through the bloodstream, hoping to be used, right? And they will be, some will be. The real trick is to not only provide the raw materials to the body, but also the signal to get them used. And that's where the tripeptides come in. Tripeptides are little molecules with just 3 amino acids strung together. They are found in marine collagen more so than others. The one that we have used for years is concentrated in tripeptides. And the way I try and explain it is our dose is 1,000 milligrams. Vital proteins is 12 to 20 because they have to throw so much at the wall to get some to stick.
Big difference. Big, huge.
Major, right? And so, but there's something else that I think is wonderful about these little tripeptides. They actually block the effect of cortisol on our skin. So when we're under stress, cortisol blocks the fibroblasts from making collagen. And that's why I always say, like, look at the president when he enters the White House and then when he comes out of the White House, and they age exponentially, right? From all that stress. That's because cortisol ages you. We know it, right? Tripeptides, as found in our collagen, block that effect. They also block UVB radiation damage to your skin. So if you're going to spend money on collagen, make sure you know what you're getting. Don't just get a bovine or a porcine peptide. That means it hasn't been very purified or refined, if you will. That's it. That's the three amino acids are glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, GPH. Those are the things that really matter. Ours has at least 15% of those guys, so it makes a big difference. And then there's all the other things that we take for our skin: vitamin C, zinc, hyaluronic acid, ceramides. One of the things that I try to get across to folks is if you took vital proteins every day for a year, or you took ours, you would save $500 a year and take way less material into your system. So it's a no-brainer. If you're going to spend money on collagen for your skin, ours is called True Peptide. It's marine collagen, and it's a patented form, and it's really, really good. There you go.
Well, there it is.
There it is. There it was.
Okay. So on to weight management, because this is right up there with beauty. This is again with the thing everybody struggles with in life. It's the biggest supplement thing in the industry. I mean, everybody's trying to lose weight. Everybody's trying to lose weight, and there are healthy ways to do this, and there are unhealthy ways to do this. Yeah. Obviously the healthy way route is diet and lifestyle, right? And but it's also in the way that you're doing it, making sure you're avoiding inflammatory foods. Fasting is huge. Fasting is a great way to, it's so good for the body. It is. People ask all the time, what do you think of intermittent fasting? It's phenomenal. If you do not have issues with your adrenals. If you have cortisol issues, fasting is not your friend. It will put your body into a bigger state of deprivation and survival. So I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I got her Dutch test back, and I'm like, your cortisol levels are cracked. And she's somebody who does a lot of fasting. And I was like, that needs to stop today. I'm thinking, this is why you can't lose weight. She's like, my weight has been stuck. I'm like, look at your hormones. I'm like, they are a mess. But the big thing right here is the cortisol. Your body, when it's under stress and when your cortisol levels are shooting too high, or now they're at a low state, it will store fat to survive. Like that's how God designed us. How about it? Like, he's got a defense mechanism. He wants us staying around. So when we do ourselves so dirty that our cortisol levels are all over the place, our body's gonna store fat to survive. How about it? Usually it's around the middle stomach. You're like, oh, that's me. And adrenal fatigue happens in 4 different stages. In the beginning, you can feel wired and tired at night. I'm a night owl. Is that you? I'm a night owl. No, that's just me. And then there's I have a hard time going to sleep. And then I wake up in the middle of the night. And then there's I'm super tired in the morning, and then it turns into, oh my gosh, I'm tired 24/7. I can't function. So fasting is not for you people, is what I'm getting at. Just gonna throw it out there. Anyway.
Hey, I heard something fascinating about these GLP-1 agonists, analogs, and people are losing weight on these things, right? Ozempic and whatnot. But here's the thing: when you lose weight in a healthy way, you'll lose about 3 pounds of fat to every pound of lean muscle or lean body mass, right? These people that are losing weight on the GLP-1s are losing 2/3 of the weight is coming in the form of lean body mass, and only 1/3 is coming from fat.
That is not good.
So they're getting,
what we're saying here is you're losing muscle, people.
yeah, you're getting fatter actually, percentage wise, because you're losing lean body mass, which is huge in regulating your insulin. Boy, unless you're really at your wit's end in terms of weight, I would say I would be so apprehensive about trying those things. Yeah.
So when it comes to metabolic health and weight management, could not ignore the thyroid. So the thyroid it's your mover, it's your shaker, it's your metabolism, right? It is the thing that so many people, I think my thyroid is broken, Susie, I can't lose weight. I'm cold all the time. My hair is falling out. I'm constipated. Thyroid. So here we go. We're going to take a little ride on Thyroid 101. All right. So your pituitary gland spits out thyroid stimulating hormone that comes out into two forms. It comes out into free T4 and free T3. Free T3 is the active form. Okay. And only a little bit comes out. Why is that? I don't know. That's not fair. I'm just going to say that right now. It's not fair. You've got all this free T4 that needs to be converted into free T3. All right. So in order for that to happen, we're traveling down. You got to have a good, healthy gut and liver. Who has that? Good question, right? Okay. Your conversion, most of it happens in the liver. All right. And within that, if you do not have adequate amounts of iron, iodine, selenium, zinc, B1, B2, B12, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin A, copper, tyrosine. You do not have all of these things working together to help support the conversion. Not going to happen very well. All right. So we've converted it in the liver. Now we come out as free T4. Okay. Over here, you have the cell. All right. Think of free T3 as the gas pedal. This is your metabolism. Yeah. And here's your cell. All right. Now at the cell, you have a thing called reverse T3. Reverse T3 is your brake. Okay. So as free T3 is coming in, reverse T3 will let you know when I've had enough. Stop. We're good. Don't need any more. It pushes back. Okay. Now, if your free T3 is even in range, it's in the lower range. Let's say it's 2.3. And your reverse T3, 15 or above, you're going to have resistance at the cell. It's going to be weak. It's going to have a hard time. So at the cell, we need vitamin D, we need vitamin E, we need omegas at the cell to actually help get it into the cell. So when I'm looking at labs and I'm seeing high T4, okay, I see your TSH is fine, but T4 is high. That's a big sign for me that the conversion is not happening in the liver. Okay, so maybe we need certain nutrients. All right. And if I start seeing, the free T3 running high, well, it is not getting into the cell. We need to do some work on some cell. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, cutting back your medication. Okay, I'm freezing. I can't poop. I have all the symptoms of being hypothyroid, and you're going to cut my medication off because that number's shooting high. So there's a lot that goes within nutrients. And this is the hard thing when it comes to a lot of doctors, because they don't understand this. They don't understand what's needed. I had a new primary care doctor, and I let her know who I am. I let her know what I do. She was like, okay, what do you need me for? And I was like, I don't want to pay for labs anymore. And if I get sick and I really need somebody, I just need something. And she was like, okay. And she went to go do thyroid labs on me. Now I am somebody who I had mold toxicity. All right. So I ended up shut down my thyroid. It turned into Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune, which I actually reversed. and I no longer have that. I don't have autoimmune anymore. And she should have seen her. She was like, and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to run a full thyroid panel on you. I don't know what it means though, but I'm sure that you and your naturopath would want those numbers. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. She was honest. She literally told me, I have no idea what the free T3 and all the other things even mean. And so you have doctors who are prescribing this stuff who they don't know. They don't know. The standard protocol for taking thyroid medication is they'll tell you take it 30 minutes before your food. What they're trying to say is take it on an empty stomach. Okay. However, if you have coffee within 5 hours of your medication, it's going to block absorption. If you have iron or calcium, it's going to, in a matter of 2 hours, it's going to block your absorption. I have people come to me all the time. They drink their coffee with their thyroid medication in the morning. I change it to the evening, at night, before bed, or in the middle of the night when you go to pee, when the digestive tract slows down and the body's doing all of its recovery and repair. So cool story. I have a guy who came to me, he's like, fix me and take some weight off of me and all the things. I'm going to go through your like, going to detox me on Monday. He gets a hold of me Monday. He's like, hey, we met on Friday. I just told him to make the one change of the medication. Doesn't change his food at all, just changes the medication. Monday morning, he's like, you know, I can't lose weight, right? At all. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I'm down 5 pounds. So what'd you do? I ate terrible, but I changed my medication and I'm taking it the way you told me to. And I was like, go figure. So all of these things matter is what I'm getting at. There's your thyroid education for today, people. Moving on to the immune system. So we have viral protection. Oh my gosh, it is like, oh my, your immune system, your innate immune system. Help me. We are fighting everything these days, people. Can we just have another round of another version of COVID, please? No, thank you. So 5 viral steps we're looking at here. Go ahead, Steve. Take this.
So at the outset of COVID in March of 2020, being the formulator that I am, I dove into creating an antiviral, and it's called True Health Defense now, because the FDA doesn't like you to say it does anything on the label. So I don't want to undersell like the immune system's amazing, right? It's so amazing. I think because of the stress that we're under and the diets that a lot of us follow, our immune system spends most of its time kind of on its back foot. And when I designed this, I went with a product that I'd used for years from Designs for Health called Immunotone Plus, I think. And I took that as the framework, and then I added to it to make sure I covered all 5 of the steps of viral progression. And I added a whole bunch of things. Long story short, if you're going to buy anything for your immune system, my personal opinion, based on 15 years of experience, is this stuff is amazing. And there's other good stuff out there for sure, but I have no qualms at saying this is among the very best available.
Are you kidding me? People like, COVID hit and I had everybody freaking out and everybody was taking this and my people were not getting COVID. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. I'm like, that's when it was viral resist. We're like, we are going strong with this. To this day, I have people who freak out if it's out of stock. I'll get emails, Susie, when's it coming back in? Because it's terrifying getting this stuff, and it's a great formulation.
We did have to change the name. It was viral resist, but the FDA didn't like that name. So it's called True Health Defense now, but it's the same thing. And yeah, it's awesome. It's really good. Just have it. The key with this stuff is to have it handy, because when you first feel that little niggling, whatever symptom, the scratchy throat or whatever, if you can hit it fast with this stuff, usually nothing happens. You wake up the next day and you're fine. And you're like, wow, thought I was getting sick, but I'm not. It's pretty cool.
All right, vitamin D. We've talked a lot about that. And
yeah,
good there.
Yeah.
Gut health is huge. I mean, 80% of your immune system is in your gut, people. Like if you have an unhealthy gut, it's going to affect your immune system. So take care of your gut. Mushrooms,
Everything.
selenium, zinc, quercetin. Yeah, these are all great things. I think all of these are pretty much in that product, aren't they?
They are. If you go on the store, you know, there's always a picture of the bottle and there's a picture of the label. Well, I did a little write-up that it's just one page, but it has all 16 items that are in it, all 16 ingredients, and like 1 or 2 sentences on why they're in there. So if you want to nerd out on immune function, that's a great little like primer.
All right.
So yeah, it's good stuff.
Moving on to longevity and health span.
Oh
my gosh, the things that tanking you. I mean, NAD is
right.
it's the hot thing now. I mean, you want to look younger, feel better, all the things. NAD it's all the rage. Am I right?
So yeah, and the key is you can't take NAD. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work very well because it gets broken down. So NMN is the way to move your NAD levels up.
Right.
And the one I used to have capsules, but it's best if you don't mind taking it under the tongue, or at least putting it in some water and swishing it around before you swallow it. And the dosing is anywhere from 250 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams a day. I sprinkle it on my yogurt and some resveratrol powder every morning. And yeah, NMN, good stuff. Spermidine, another amazing molecule. But it's the other stuff that we talked about, the blue zone stuff, you know, community connect and being in a good relationship is huge.
Reducing damage of inflammation, oxidative stress. I mean, all of these are critical for your lifespan, you know?
Yep.
Cardiometabolic health. Yes. Health. Chronic infections. That's the thing. If you have chronic infections in your body, if we're dealing with mold, if we're dealing with, you know, toxins, heavy metals, everything else in your body, it's going to affect your longevity for sure. And it's one of those things you can't ignore forever and you should address. Just going to put that out there. And maintaining muscle mass is huge. It's very important. Like he was talking about that earlier, especially us ladies, as we age, muscle mass, super important to increase and keep up. It's going to help with everything, especially metabolism, which we worry about, right?
Right.
When it comes to testing, there's all sorts of different ways and different tests for different things. For nutrients, you know, you want to do micronutrient testing, and that's a great way to see. That's a great way to see where things are at. Like you want to know. I want to know. I have somebody right now who's going through chelation she had breast implant or explants, and we've done a lot of chelating of getting the metals and stuff out of her, and it sucks so many nutrients out. So we've been doing a lot of micronutrient tests on her to see where things are at, on what's depleted and what needs to be replenished. And I think it's important to know. I mean, you should always know where your things are at. So same thing, iron, for instance. I won't give somebody iron until I've looked at labs, because I have hematomacrosis. Hematomacrosis is a genetic SNP. I absorb 5 times the amount of a normal human. Absorb it, meaning I have to be super careful. And if you don't know that you have something like this, all right, like it can be super dangerous. So my iron levels will shoot high. My ferritin will shoot high, iron saturation, TIBC will go low. Like it's a nightmare. And so you always would want to know. And so I do want to talk about this, especially iron testing, because this is something that everyone should be educated on this. Okay. So when you're looking at your CBC, all right, you have your hematocrit and you have your hemoglobin. Okay. If these are good indications of if you're anemic or not, if those are low, all right, that could be from iron, but that can also be because of B12. Doctor's not going to tell you that, nor is the doctor going to look any further. Really, you should also be looking at ferritin. You should be doing a whole iron panel to see if you are. Ferritin is your stored iron. Okay. This is your reserve. This is if I get sick. Iron is important for every cell in the body. All right. So this is if you are super low here and you get into trouble, you're hosed. All right. So I mentioned earlier that people with H. pylori, Epstein-Barr, SIBO, they're low in iron. So I have somebody right now who every time her period hits and she bleeds, we are in critical. She's dizzy, she's heart palpitations, she's almost passing out, her iron tank. So we're starting infusions in another week. But her doctor, nobody was checking her ferritin, nobody's checking her iron. They was just checking her hemoglobin and hematocrit. Same thing. I have an 85-year-old. Oh my gosh, she's telling me how dizzy she is. She's having these bad dizzy spells. And I'm like, we need to check your iron. So she calls her doctor. Her doctor, first of all, her doctor won't check it. Then she tells, and she's been in the hospital twice, emergency room, in the past 2 weeks because of these dizzy spells. And they look back and they look at her CBC, they look at her hematocrit and her hemoglobin, and it's fine. And they said, you're fine. And I'm like, no, they need to look at your ferritin. They need to look at everything. We went through 2 weeks. She even called her doctor and said, my cardiologist said that you need to run this. I mean, nobody was touching this with the template pole. Like, they were literally ignoring this woman who was telling them, just please. And she was begging them, wouldn't do it. Fired the doctor. I'm like, I just ordered the labs for you, honey. Like, don't even worry about it. Let's just do this. And, sure enough, guess who was low in ferritin and iron and everything else? I mean, I already knew this, and I started I'm like, I'm sending you iron right now. I already know what this is. And sure enough, so you got to look a little deeper than just the CBC is what I'm getting at. Anyway, I'm sure you have something to say on that.
The only thing I would say is actually in a lot of, especially male patients, high iron is a bigger issue. Ferritin is, as you test all the time for it, obviously, and high ferritin in guys is a cardiovascular risk factor, and the best way to manage it is to give blood a couple times a year.
Yep.
And it helps the community, it helps you. It's kind of a no-brainer. Most people should do it anyway, just once a year at least. Don't do it right before surgery, though. I did that once. It's not fun. I don't recommend it. Anyway, lots of tests. Probably the best advice I would give anybody is just make sure you're working with somebody that you trust, that is on top of things, that is not just going with a cookie cutter approach to functional medicine, that's willing to, take the time to look at things individually.
Right.
When I first started,
go ahead.
with that. Oh, when I first started functional medicine, hardly anybody knew what it was, but now it's everywhere. And anytime things get that big, they can get diluted. And everybody now is a functional medicine practitioner, it seems. So
right. Oh yeah. And the type of test matter too. So if you're looking at doing a mold test, it has to be a mycotoxin test. It's going to be a urine test. Don't do it with blood. People will do blood. No, it's not the right way.
Yeah.
SIBO, it's a breath test. Parasites are interesting because, like, a lot of people really like run a stool test, but that really isn't what you would show. More so in your CBC, when we're looking at eosinophils or basophils, that's where you would suspect more parasitic action, because they really don't show very often in the stool. And when it comes to hormone tests, I cannot advocate for this enough. Okay, so there are blood tests, and there are urine, and there are salivary tests. Okay, so blood test is great for thyroid. All right, sure. Blood test is horrible for cortisol. Cortisol needs to be a 4-point test, either salivary or urine, throughout the day, because we want to look at what it's doing. It should be highest in the morning, dip a little, go up a little, come down, come down. If you're tanking, like, it's super important to see where the problem is. If you're looking at one spot in your blood, not really going to give you a lot. Same thing with all of your hormones. Okay, if your doctor does I'm going to test your estrogen and progesterone. All right, so it's a snapshot of what's happening right now in the blood work. All right, the Dutch test, it's a dried urine test. It's overnight. You have to you got to pee on like 5 different strips throughout the course of the day. And it's after the liver metabolizes everything and it's going to come out. So your liver metabolizes and processes all of your hormones. How about it? Does it liver everything that goes through your body, your liver handles? Okay. So it's important to get this. Now, let me give you a good story. I had somebody who got testosterone pellets in. She had low libido, all the things. Pellets ran out in 3 months. First of all, pellets are the worst because you can't regulate them. They're going to go in. The next time you can get them is 3 months later. They're going to shoot super high. You can't even regulate how high they are. And then they could dump at any time. And now you're like, oh, it's been a month and I feel like trash now. And I have to wait 2 more months. Have no idea. Like it's a thing. So she was like, I need hormones. And so she went to her doctor. Her doctor ran a blood test. And at the same time, I did the Dutch test, the urine test. Her levels came back from her doctor. Her testosterone was fine in her blood work. And she felt terrible. Like, I have no libido. I'm exhausted. I'm literally dying. That test came back. She had nothing. And she took it into her doctor. And her doctor was like, yeah, I've never seen this before. Okay, no, I believe you. Like, I see the symptoms and everything else, but it's different. It's a great test. And it does cortisol, it does your testosterone, your free testosterone. It'll do your 3 estrogens, and it also will show how your body's detoxifying estrogens. That's right. It'll show up how it's methylating. Remember I talked about methylation? That's right. It'll show genetic SNPs coming down and what it looks like and how it's processed. And if it's shooting high, we may be at risk for some breast cancer, and we may need to add in some things to help detoxify estrogen. Estrogen, it's a phenomenal test. It also does a small oat test, organic acid test. So it'll look at some gut markers. That's right. It'll look at your bees. It'll look at it's phenomenal. I can't stress what a phenomenal test this is. Anyway,
yeah.
Soapbox Susie out on Dutch, right?
Yeah, it's amazing for sure.
All right. So anyway, wow, it's been almost 2 hours. Anybody who is interested in any of Steve's supplements and his line, let us. We got links for you. We're gonna send links to you via email to connect you. And if you're interested in like neurotransmitter stuff or whatever it is that you're like, hey, do you know a good supplement for X? Like, what's a good quality, thing for this? And if it's, we will shoot you in the right direction, is what I'm getting at. What you got?
Yes.
Steve?
Oh, nothing. I just wanted to mention that we do have a discount code. RCA20 is going to get folks 20% off at intuitivenutrients.com. So come and get it.
Okay, my friend. Thank you so much. This has been fun. Always fun.
I agree. Thank you. And great to see you.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.